The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
College basketball coaches have always been paid. And in the last 20 years or so, we've seen some enormous salaries for coaches. Players, only in the last few years, have gotten paid. For many years, those coaches, even with big salaries, would protect the players. Well, now that the players are getting paid, coaches are taking it out on the players, it seems. And we've had a rash of rants from coaches, which has me asking the question, where's this leading to? Where's this going to go? Because it doesn't seem like this is a sustainable system. I'm not the first to say that. I'm not breaking any news here. But just anecdotally, it just seems that as we've now come up for air after the NFL season and go, oh, there's college basketball going on, and the season's coming down the stretch, and we're going to have the conference tournaments pretty soon. And then the only really 3 weeks that most people care about with college basketball is the NCAA tournament. But now that we pay more attention to college basketball without the NFL engulfing us, you start to notice sort of a trend here. And with the NIL and with the transfer portal, it's a whole new world for the players. And in the past, coaches used to try to protect them because if things weren't working out, that player may come around. There was a player named Landon Milbourne many years ago at Maryland, high recruit, and didn't get very much playing time his freshman year. And he walks into Gary Williams' office at the end of the year, and Gary is sure he's going to tell him he's going to transfer. And in those days, when you transferred, you had to sit out a year. And Milbourne said, Coach, I just want to know what I need to do to get better. And Gary's like, whoo, breath of fresh air, told him. He worked on it, and Milbourne became a very significant player for them his last 3 years of eligibility. He may have been a starter all 3 years. And that was the old days. Nowadays, it's a combination of players who know they're going to leave once things don't work out the way they want them to at the school, or whether there's more money for them if they are working out. So there's this constant churn and burn going on there. And then you got the coaches who want to chase some of these guys away because they got big-time recruits coming in, or they're paying more money for a guy who's at a mid-major school who can come in and help them the next year. It's a weird circumstance. And so now you have, like, Georgetown. Ed Cooley, I thought, great hire for Georgetown. That program was a mess after Patrick Ewing finally left. He had one great run to the NCAA tournament, winning the Big East during the pandemic year. But other than that, his coaching record was a disaster. Good man, just didn't work out at his alma mater. And so Ed Cooley comes in after great success at Providence, and he seemed like the right guy. He's always great at these news conferences, and he was going to rebuild Georgetown. And to an extent he did. They haven't been an embarrassment in any way, but this was supposed to be a big step-up year in year 3. That the NIL money had come in. Reports are they got more than $20 million from boosters for the program so that they can pay these players. It's also a Big East school, meaning that there's no football or no significant football. So the bulk of the money from the where this budget is now set up with the NCAA would go to basketball. They were expected to be better than this, and they're not. And they lost again last night at home, losing to Butler 93-89, allowing Butler to shoot 56% in this game. And Georgetown is now 13-13 on the year. More importantly, 5-10 in the Big East. And like has been the case all year long, which included Cooley throwing a water bottle in the stands after a home loss, and he was suspended a game for that. And he has not held back in his post-game news conference as he did last night after the loss.
I thought my team today, we played Hoya basketball for 4 minutes and 10 seconds today. For 36 minutes, it was a very lazy group, not connected defensively, very, very disappointed in our defensive effort, energy, attention to detail, preparation. got a quick turnaround, have a really hard game on Saturday. This is now 5, 6, 7 games in the Big East where we're losing in the last minute of the game, last minute and a half of the game with, the my bad. So something to correct. Very, very frustrating, incredibly frustrating to see my group prepare that way, to play that way. So stuff that we all got to take a look at, and maybe I got to make some changes that deservingly so probably need.
Ed, Bubala, you're 20 games into the season. You recruited these guys. These were the guys, and you paid them. You not only recruited them, but you paid them. And his frustration boiled to the point where he even invoked the name of John Thompson.
A will and a want. A will and a want. Our will and want the last 4.5 minutes was the group that I thought I was going to coach the whole year. That's what I thought. That just, for whatever reason, we just, we left our defensive focus, our defensive toughness, our defensive teamwork. We left that at the hilltop today.
1 for 11, 3 points in the first half.
They played great. The young kids played great.
Defense was broken.
We scored 89 points at home and lost. I don't think they did anything different. Honestly, that was the blind playing the blind defensive game, right? Again, we were just probably more blind. They ended up winning. Seriously, that wasn't a defensive, specialty game at all. Big coach right now is rolling in his grave looking at that defensive effort from both teams. I don't think they did anything different from game one. It's just they played more hungry, they played more passionate, they were more connected, and they just were more desirable to win. That's all this game came down to.
Yeah, sorry about the sloppy editing there, but you heard him say, big coach is rolling in his grave, big coach being big John Thompson, who always stressed defense. I mean, Georgetown had some ugly offensive teams, but boy, defensively they would smother you, which Georgetown did not last night. So this is a lost year. And how many more lost years does Ed Cooley get? And if you keep throwing your players under the bus, not mentioning them by name, but making it clear that they're not listening to him. Well, that's probably not the best strategy because, as Big John used to say, if you keep telling people that you're doing a bad job coaching them, people are going to start to believe you. And get another year. This is the way it works now. Total reset. Who he doesn't like, boom, they're gone. New players come in. He's got pretty much of a whole new team next year. We'll see what it looks like. And then on the West Coast, you have Mick Cronin. Now, Cronin is in his 7th year at UCLA. Doesn't seem like that, but he's been there that long. He's a Midwest guy, spent his whole coaching career at Cincinnati, and took the big money to go to UCLA. But all he does is whine and act like a jackass, which he did the other night after they lost to Michigan State in a game in which one of his players got called for a flagrant foul. And rather than just, put him on the bench to have him cool off, he ejected him from the game. He sent him to the locker room. He said, get out of here. And they made a big scene. And as he walked past the student section of Michigan State, they were giving him a rough time. And then he decides he's going to take it out on a reporter who asked a legitimate question about that game and playing at Michigan State with the student section chanting the name of a player that's on his team at UCLA who didn't play much in that game, hasn't played much this year, and was a big-time recruit at one time at Michigan State and was a disappointment there before going to UCLA. And, rather than handle himself like a man, Mick Cronin decided to handle himself like a child.
What was your thought in the student section chanting Booker's name?
I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section.
I just meant overall the way that you
I would like to give you a kudos for the worst question I've ever been asked.
All right, I'll take it.
Did you like
You should take it.
the preparation of the...
Do you really think I care about the other team's
No, I don't.
student
I don't
section?
think you care about the other.
Are you
team.
raising your voice at me?
No, I'm just.
Yeah, you are.
talking.
Yeah, you are. Come on, dude.
I'm not raising.
Come on. Yes, you are. Everybody's standing here listening to you. Everybody. This is on camera. They can hear you. I answered the question. I could give a rat's ass about the other team's student section. I coach UCLA. I don't care about Michigan State students. I mean, who cares?
Yeah, well, the cameras were rolling, and the reporter clearly didn't raise his voice, and you acted like a jackass, Mick Cronin, which you have done throughout the season. This chronicled by the New York Post today after their opening win. They opened the season against Eastern Washington. Maybe it wasn't the blowout that many expected, but they won the game by 6 points, and Cronin said he would like to fire himself for his team's lagging defense and promised he would bench players who didn't start performing on that side of the ball. Later that month, November 25th, they lost to California, 80-72. Cronin said his team deserved to lose to its Pac-12 rival, or former Pac-12 rival. They're now in the Big Ten. Forget that. He says, that's on me. It is what it is. Congratulations. They kicked our ass. Our team attitude was terrible. It's been a problem for a month. It affects performance. You get a ring against somebody that wants to fight. You get in the ring against someone who wants to fight, and you give them confidence early. You're in a fight aside from the fact that we didn't make a free throw. I would say we got a glass jaw if you were to describe us as a fighter. So I calling his team soft. Then January 3rd, they lost to Iowa, 74-61. You just can't play hard when the ball goes in. We're letting our offensive struggles affect us, and we came in here with a game plan. If you turned it over, you're going to lose, and we turned it over 9 times in the first half. I thought we were unbelievably soft on offense and defense. January 17th, they lost to Ohio State, 86-74. I'm highly disappointed in getting our ass kicked physically and our inability to play defense. I offer no excuses. Blame me, blame me. I recruited them. I signed them as free agents. We're not going to win meaningful games if we can't stop the other team. You know, these are paid professionals. Understand that. But you keep throwing your team under the bus, eventually they're not going to listen to you anymore. And then January 31st, they lost to Indiana in double overtime. Cronin said his players couldn't execute the scouting report, blamed them for allowing their offensive struggles to impact their overall play. We went through a stretch where we were pouting and letting one shot affect the next. We couldn't score for a long time. It's how we got down 10, missing wide open shot after wide open shot, and stole our favorite toy like we're a 3-year-old. You keep berating your team like that, and you do mention the fact that they're paid professionals and you recruited them and you paid them. Well, that's the way it goes. And I think also the disposability of the players allows you to do this as well. That these aren't young men that you're building up as freshmen and getting them to improve and making them good basketball players by the time they're sophomores, sometimes juniors, which is how it used to be done, which it was done with Gary Williams telling Landon Milbourne, who wanted to play for him and get meaningful playing time, here's what you need to do to improve, and seeing him do it and then rewarding that. It's a whole new game. And then you got Doug Gottlieb. Now, to be fair to Gottlieb, he should have been fired last year. They won only 4 games, and he came to Green Bay with a radio show and said he could do both. And finally this year he realized, I can't do both, so he left the radio show, which I had said when he took the job was never going to work out. You know, if you're going to do any kind of a job on the radio, you need to spend some time doing it. And if you're going to be a college basketball coach, you need to spend pretty much your entire waking hours working on basketball. So after they lost at Milwaukee, he's coaching Wisconsin, Green Bay, and they lost to Wisconsin, Milwaukee over the weekend. Doug Gottlieb put on a show for the reporters, this time not necessarily throwing his players under the bus, but going off on the referees.
I did not curse. I was not demonstrative. I did not leave my box. All I said was, that's the same play as the other end. Okay? All we ask is that there's a fair game. That's what we ask. Okay, CJ O'Hara goes and gets an offensive rebound. Their player dives at his legs. CJ gets called for a foul. I need Donnie at the league and the new commissioner to explain to me the disparity in the officiating. That's what I need explained to me. I got no problem with their team, their staff. They played hard. They did what they do. They play tough and they play aggressive. I need somebody to explain to me, okay, how just those two. There's others that I have massive issues with, okay? Others that have including every time we touched them, there was a foul in the second half. The last play of the game, just to get the ball, they're grabbing us and holding us. Okay, and I understand. If you're not calling that, that's fine. You had the exact same play at both ends in the last play of the game. The exact same play. The exact same play. So I need the new commissioner of the Horizon League to explain to me what a technical foul is when I don't leave the box, I don't curse, I'm not demonstrative. Okay? There was nothing that should have been called a technical foul. I know when I earned one. I did not earn one. Okay, and the CJ play, we're up 6 points. That dramatically changed the trajectory of the game. He's our best defender. He's one of our best players. He picked up his 4th foul, collecting an offensive rebound when a guy falls into his legs. Okay, all we ever ask is fair. Okay, and I'm not talking about 37 to 18 in free throw attempts. That's how they play. They shoot it and go get it. Fine, whatever. Okay, what I'm asking is 3 things. Okay, I'm asking how it's technical foul when I don't curse. Okay, when I wasn't demonstrative, because you're not allowed to point to the screen or mime something that's happening. Didn't do that. Didn't leave the coaching box, wasn't on the floor. Those are all the things you get technical foul for. Not saying that's the same call at the other end. Okay? And C.J. O'Hara collecting an offensive rebound. And what's the freshman? He's a good player. Steve Elam diving for the loose ball, okay, and falling into his legs. And C.J. O'Hara gets called for a foul. Okay? And then the last play of the game, which I'm willing to say, hey, our end, you don't want to call foul? All right, kind of drove into traffic, whatever. It's the exact same play as the other end. Could not be more similar. And yet every time they drove in there, it was a foul, and every time we did, it was mixed. It was mixed.
Did you get any explanation?
Nope. And King Whetstone called the technical foul. He avoided me the rest of the game. That's not right. Okay, I was not combative in any way. Okay, I did not curse one single time. I was not on the court one single time. I was not out of my box one single time. I was not on the court one single time. You tell me. Okay, that's all I'm asking. Anyway, what else? Thanks.
Well, for saving your cursing and fist pounding for the post-game news conference, Doug Gottlieb, the coach at Wisconsin Green Bay, has been awarded a 1-game suspension, which he will serve in a crucial game tomorrow night at Oakland. And the Horizon League said in a statement, Gottlieb's post-game comments do not reflect the league's values or sportsmanship expectation. The Horizon League considers this matter closed and will have no further comment. Gottlieb, I'm sure, the urging of his athletic director, said, I would like to apologize to the Horizon League and the officials for my disparaging comments following Sunday's game. I understand and appreciate how difficult their job is and respect what they do for the sport of basketball. I will be moving forward. Now, they do have a chance to make it to the NCAA tournament, and given they were 4-28 last year, give them some credit for that. But this is just sport-wide. It's this whining that you're getting from coaches about their players, and in Gottlieb's case, about the referees, all those virtues that you were supposed to teach your players. That's gone by the wayside. And I think especially these guys who've been in the business a long time, like Cooley, they're looking at, hey, this isn't what I used to do. I used to have, the sword over all the players here, and it's not that way anymore. Well, I give you the example of Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs coached professional men. Now, in his first go-round, they didn't have free agency, but they did in the second, and he would always have his players' backs. Yeah, maybe it made for tedious post-game news conferences and so forth, but it paid off because his teams always played well at the end of the season. They always were great in December, and when they get into January, as we know, they went to 4 Super Bowls, so they also got pretty good in January as well. And these guys, I think they're looking at the landscape here, and they're saying, wait a minute, I became a college coach because I was going to be coaching amateur kids. Now all I got is guys who have a lot more control over what they do than professionals because they don't have contracts. They come for 1 year, and if it doesn't work out, they go someplace else. If they don't play in a certain number of games, it's a redshirt year, so the year doesn't even count. And this is the frustration, at least to me, this is the sound of the frustration spilling out, and it's an ugly look. It's a bad look for the sport. Coming up, we are approaching draft season. Peak Mel Kiper, who was on the Rich Eisen show here on ESPN 630 yesterday. I'll pull some of what he said and what it means for the Commanders, who are picking 7th and possibly looking for a wide receiver. Maybe not in the first round, but this is, as Mel says, a deep draft for receivers. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Disappointed in your team's season? Don't worry. Here's Mel Kiper to tell you how it can all get better. This is the cycle of the calendar. The Super Bowl comes to an end. Sometimes it's exciting. Sometimes, like this year, it's a dud. And then you quickly move into next season. And, oh, boy, for the Seattle Seahawks, this is a great offseason for ownership. Paul Allen owned the team. He bought them for this. Shows you how quickly things ramped up before Dan Snyder bought the team, which was seemingly an exorbitant amount in 1999 until you realize that he sold it for $6 billion 24 years later. But just 2 years earlier, the Seahawks sold to Paul Allen for $196 million. 196. They may get $8 billion. And now's the time to sell, right? You're coming off the Super Bowl. And part of the reason it's taken this long to sell the team, it has something to do with the tax laws in the state of Washington. And Allen did not marry, did not have any children, so his sister became the de facto owner of the team, and she's now reached the point where it can be sold. And, boy, talk about selling at the right time. They're up for sale. But the other teams focusing on how they can do what Seattle did this year and get to the Super Bowl. And that's where lonely eyes always turn to Mel Kiper when it comes to February. And from February to April, he is omnipresent. He's everywhere. They do a daily draft show now on ESPN, which Mel is a part of. I mean, if you look at the draft industry, you can directly tie the explosion of it to Mel Kiper Jr., who is the genuine article. I was lucky enough to work with him for 6 years at ESPN, and he is an absolute marvel. And before he got to ESPN, he was doing this in a way that was, you talk about grinding. He would spend all day working on his draft guides, and in those days, most of the sports talk shows were in the evening, so he would start like at 6 o'clock and do talk show after talk show around the country to promote his guide that he was selling. And then in 1983, ESPN televised the draft, and their draft expert was Paul Zimmerman. And Paul Zimmerman knew pro football. He didn't know college football. He didn't know prospects. And he ripped the Miami Dolphins for taking Dan Marino. So the next year they thought, it'd be a good idea we get somebody here who knows what he's talking about with the draft. Thus, Mel Kiper was born at ESPN in 1984, and here we are 42 years later, and he's still at the top of his game. And so yesterday he was on the Rich Eisen show here. Rich now officially part of ESPN, the NFL Network, and the ESPN merger is happening, and he was part of that, coming over to ESPN with his show. So, it's all one big family again. And they talked about what is the deepest position in this draft, and Mel said it's wide receiver.
You're going to be talking a lot about the wide receiver depth into day three and beyond. Maybe undrafted free agents come out of that position, but it's a little top heavy, but there's depth throughout, and there's some speed guys. Zachariah Branch at Georgia, I like more than some others do. He said, well, I didn't get down the field enough. Well, they were bubble screens. That's what he did. And he's a great return man. Kick returns are huge in the NFL these days. And also Brendan Thompson out of Mississippi State's another kid who can fly and had a huge year with the Bulldogs. But you look at that list, Carnell Tate's going to be interesting. Did the Tennessee Titans take him at 4? Did the Giants take him at 5? If you need a guy, Rich, who can get open, run great routes, and catch the football. We see guys that have gone to first round and drop too many balls. Carnell Tate doesn't drop the football. So that dependability, that reliability is going to be huge if he goes to Cam Ward or if he goes to Jackson Dart. They're going to really like that addition of Carnell Tate to that offense.
Yeah, I mean, Tate, to be honest with you, is a Michigan fan. He's the receiver that would scare me the most over the last couple of years after JSN departed. Because, Jeremiah Smith, as great as he is, and we're going to end up talking about him in a draft down the road as a possible top pick in the draft, even crazier from a wide receiver, depending on what the quarterback position looks like. He's that good. At least he's been that good for sure, that you could potentially double him and take him out, and then Carnell Tate will just tear you a new one. That guy is the real deal, Mel. There's no doubt about it.
And next year, we thought quarterback was going to be this year. Quarterback's going to be next year. It fizzled out this year, Rich. But you mentioned Jeremiah Smith. You're going to have Arch Manning. You're going to have Dante Moore from Oregon. You're going to have quarterbacks up there at the top. And Jeremiah Smith in any year is going to go high. But those quarterbacks, because obviously the value of that position, the most important position in any sport in the world, will go a little higher possibly.
That's Mel Kiper yesterday with Rich Eisen. And that's good that it's a deep drafted wide receiver because that's going to be a need for Washington, a big need, no matter who gets re-signed here. Terry McLaurin is definitely coming back. I believe, unless Terry McLaurin has an all-pro type of year, this is it for him. They've got an exit ramp off the contract after this year, but they're going to need wide receivers, and that's good that you can go deep into the draft and still find them. McLaurin was a third-round pick, and that has obviously worked out. Now, as far as what Washington will do, what Mel is projecting on the big board, they will take Ruben Bain, the defensive end from Miami. And if you watch the national championship game, he was awesome. I mean, great performance by Indiana and Fernando Mendoza. But if you look at that now iconic shot of him reaching the ball over the goal line for the touchdown, his forearms are completely bruised up, and he took a beating from that Miami defensive line led by Ruben Bain, and that's a real need for Washington, is a disruptor. They're not going to be taking a quarterback, of course, but as far as this draft for quarterbacks, it's kind of Fernando Mendoza and everybody else. And he will go number one to the Raiders. That seems to be a slam dunk, and that is a spot that, while Mel says, yeah, sure, he doesn't have these generational athletic skills, he has certainly earned the designation as the number one pick.
He did everything that you needed to do to solidify that spot. I had Dante Moore slightly ahead after that Penn State game. Remember that great game Dante Moore had up at Happy Valley? So once I had him there, I had to wait for Dante to struggle. Well, even when he had some struggles, he had that great drive late. He had to deal with a lot of bad weather and injuries on the offensive side of the ball for Oregon. So I couldn't take him off that spot, but I had him neck and neck. Then the end of the year, you saw what Fernando Mendoza was able to do, finishing it off. So he becomes solidly the number one quarterback. Dante made a great decision. Not enough starts at 20. Go back to Oregon. Be right there with Arch as the number one pick next year. So now it's all about Fernando Mendoza and Clint Kubiak and the Raiders. Get lucky, fortunate to have that first pick and have a quarterback that's worthy of being that high a pick and being a franchise quarterback like we're expecting Fernando Mendoza to be. He cut down on the sacks dramatically from Cal to this year at Indiana. He got the ball to all those receivers accurately, clutch situations. The way he does the decision-making, Rich, late in a play that he made on a consistent basis was remarkable. And not turning it over, being able to beat a defense with his legs, as he did in the championship game. When he did a run, he could. The great leadership. He was going to go to Yale. He's incredibly intelligent, so passionate, so energetic. For the Raiders, Raider Nation, be happy. In the AFC, particularly in that division, Rich, with Patrick Mahomes, and you think about Justin Herbert and Bo Nix, to get a guy like this for Clint Kubiak, you struck gold here. This kid is an outstanding prospect.
Yeah, the phrase that I always picked up from my guy Mayock over the years, clean off the field as well. Yeah. You take a look, again, I'm not an all-22 guy, but his out routes were pinpoint. His 50-50 balls were perfection. You mentioned about what Moore did against Penn State, the throw that Mendoza made against Penn State, and that final drive, spectacular. Him getting blown up by Ohio State on the first play of the Big Ten championship game. What Miami was delivering with shoulders and heads and elbows in his direction, and what he was able to do on that fourth down with his legs. I mean, every box checked. But Mel, where would he rank if he was in last year's draft class, or even 2 years ago where there were three that went at the top, and Drake May being the one who was in the Super Bowl this year? Where would he rank?
Yeah, he reminds me a lot, Rich. When you look back, you think about Peyton Manning, how he studied, right? You can't get him out of film. You can't get him out of the evaluation of the opponent. He always says, I love trying to crack the code. That was a Fernando Mendoza comment back during the season. Crack the code. And he did it. And he did it regularly. You think about where we are right now in terms of ranking. Will it be historically great? No, because you talk about, everybody says he doesn't have elite traits. Well, you don't need elite traits to be the greatest of all time. Tom Brady didn't have anywhere near elite traits. And he had 7 Super Bowl rings, went to 10, right? Nobody's even close to that number. So for me, Fernando Mendoza, as you say, checks every box. There's no question about that. In any draft, I don't care what draft you're talking about, he would be right there. Now, would a guy with maybe more talent, like Caleb Williams and the Jaden Daniels and guys like that, would they have been ahead? Who knows? But to say that this guy's not worthy of being the number one pick is ridiculous. It's nonsense. To say he's not the best player in this draft, I don't know who's better. because you're getting a guaranteed start at the quarterback position, which is the most important position in any sport in the world. So I don't know. And the Raiders to have that pick, be so fortunate. Think about how lucky they are. Sometimes you can have the number 1 pick. There's no quarterback. You have to force it, or you have to take somebody else, or wish you were in another year. They got lucky, as the Colts did with Peyton Manning. Remember, they ended up with Andrew Luck another year when they were fortunate to get Andrew Luck. So at the end of the day, having the number 1 pick, desperately needing a quarterback, Raider Nation, be happy, because now the Jets are on the clock.
Ooh, love that kind of talk. Jets are on the clock. So slam dunk, Mendoza goes number 1 to the Raiders, and how good he's going to be. If you're going to make comparisons to Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, I think that's pretty good. If he comes close, if he comes within a Grand Canyon of either quarterback, that's going to be a win for the Raiders. This is getting a little bit of play, and I'm kind of surprised by it, but we're in the kind of doldrums of the NFL, so if there's anything that you can grab onto, people are interested in. Jaden Daniels gave an interview with Sports Illustrated. I haven't read the whole thing, but I saw one of the excerpts. This is what people are talking about. And he was asked about playing in Philadelphia. And Daniels said in this SI interview, I love Eagles fans. They embody what Philly brings. To be able to go out there and play against them, it's kind of just that thing. The environment is kind of like the closest thing you could get to a college environment. And asked if the Philadelphia fans give him more fuel, he said, for sure. If you go out there, you can beat Philly in Philly. That's a different type, but their fans bring it, especially we as rivals with them in the NFC East. I love playing against them. And some took this, because this is how social media works, some took this as, oh, he's slapping the face of Washington fans. No, he's telling you that they got passionate fans, Philadelphia, which is no news flash, and he likes it. He's not going to shrink from it. He's fueled by that. That's good. That's what you want. You want a guy who's going to stand up there and say, okay, bring it, folks, and I'm going to beat you. And they didn't do very well against the Eagles this past year, that's for sure. They beat them the year before. I think they were the last team to, if I'm not mistaken, the last team to beat them before they won the Super Bowl. And, yeah, I mean, I look at that as a positive, a total positive. Oh, the Washington fans aren't going to like – if you don't like that, you got a problem. You don't want a quarterback saying, yeah, man, yeah, that's a tough environment. I do what I can, but, boy, that's an intimidating place to play. Nah, he's saying to the Eagle fans, okay, you guys want to boo me? Bring it. Bring it, baby. Like that. Way to go. Little baseball here. Yesterday on, pardon the interruption, Justin Verlander was on, and he still needs 44 wins to reach 300. So that's going to be tough to do, but he's still at it. He's, again, 42. He's about to start his 21st season in the majors, and it's his second go-round with the Detroit Tigers, where he spent the first 13 years of his career. And last year he was in San Francisco. It was the only year there. He played several seasons with the Mets and had a great year with the Astros. I mean, his last really great year, he's won 3 Cy Youngs. The last one was tremendous, and it was still 4 years ago. But not to say he'll get back to that form, but if he gets, within shouting distance of it, the Tigers will be thrilled. 2022 for Houston, he was 18-4 with a 1.75 ERA. Last year in San Francisco, not great numbers. It was 4-11 with a 3.85 ERA. However, he played much better in the second half of the season. And because of that, there is the feeling that he can carry that over back to Detroit at the age of 42, or at least as he told Tony and Mike on PTI, he hopes so.
How that carries over into this year, am I confident? I'm going to be dead honest and say I haven't been confident in a single spring training my entire career.
Really?
It's a brand new season. No, it's a brand new season every single year. There's new panic every single year. The first bullpen you throw, when the pitches aren't doing what you're used to them doing or what you want them to do, it's, you go in and sit in the locker and you're like, oh my gosh, is this going to be the year? But that hasn't changed whether I was, 40 plus or 25 or 30. It's been the same every year. So it's funny you asked that, because today I had my first live bullpen situation, and I didn't love how it went. So I went in the locker room. I'm like, oh God, it's over. And apparently I got a few other guys in there that think the same way every year that are also really good. So that was fun to talk with them.
One of the many reasons that I'm rooting for you is the role of a starting pitcher and how it's diminished. And it's a thing I stress out over, maybe because until I was about 17, I thought I might be one of these days, a starting pitcher. And it's almost like there's an extinction. Justin, how do you feel about this? And do you think baseball needs a more prominent role for the starting pitcher?
I think it does. I think yes. I think it's a really nuanced question. And I mean, I could probably go on for the entirety of this show about that. But I do think it's something that needs to be addressed from Major League Baseball standpoint. Obviously, analytics has changed the game dramatically since I've been around. And you see the way that that's affecting not only how young guys throw, how hard they're throwing, the injuries, how managers manage the game, how guys are taught to go through the lineup. You know, you don't see guys as often going through the lineup 3 times. It's analytics say that they should be out of there the 3rd time through because it's, you know, the hitters have more chance of success. I don't know how to answer that. I mean, I've thought extensively about it, and I have some thoughts, but that would take a while.
We will get you out of here on this. By the way, I love the fact that Tarek Skubal thinks of you as his childhood idol. That must hurt a little bit. Yeah. Childhood idol, you know?
Yeah, especially since he's not like 21 years old, you know?
All right, we get you out. Speaking of how old people are, you're 42. You have 266 wins. It's the most of any active pitcher. Is 300 something that drives you?
I wouldn't say it drives me, but you know, it's definitely on the horizon. At this point, I think I'm very clear-minded about it's a year-by-year thing. If something catastrophic happens, like I'm not going to grind through a surgery or something like that to continue to play. So, but I haven't lost, as you say, at the drive. But it's not for 300. It's for love of the game. I really do. I enjoy competing. Every old player that I've talked to is like, play until the wheels fall off, play until they rip the jersey off you. You know, because once it's gone, it's gone. And I really listen to them. Some people I really respect. And look, if I can still play this game at a high level, you know, last year the second half I really proved it to myself and others. So. You know, I think it'd be a disservice to all the work I've put in my entire career, my entire life. I've been playing this game since I was 5 years old. You know, and that's led me to where I am. And if I were to cut that short now, I just wouldn't feel good about it.
That's Justin Verlander, PTI yesterday, a very old pitcher at the age of 42, still chasing it, back with the Tigers for what could be another hurrah or maybe the end. And I love his honesty there. He's just said, I don't know, you know, and every year. And the uncertainty, too. That's what we don't really think about when we watch great athletes perform. Oh, they must have all the confidence in the world. And sometimes they express that. But in talking to great performers, they tell you they are driven by the fear of failure. And that's another one in Justin Verlander. So that's the old pitcher on PTI, the very young manager of the Nationals. I pulled some of his news conference. We'll get to that next. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
You know, since the Nationals came here from Montreal in 2005, this has been an organization that's pretty much been managed by Ulta Cockers. I mean, Frank Robinson was the manager when they arrived from Montreal, 2005. Frank was probably pushing 70 at that point, maybe was 70 years old. Dusty Baker, you had Davey Johnson, older manager. Even Davey Martinez, by the time they fired him last year, was in his 60s. These are old guys. New manager of the team is 33 years old. Now, how this is going to work out, I don't know. But we're going to find out soon, right? He's never managed above the single-A level, never played above the single-A level, did not walk into a major league dugout until this year in spring training. I mean, this is a grand experiment here, but it's not like everything old is new again. Everything new is new again, something like that. Anyway, this was Butera addressing the situation with reporters the other day about a team that's now being run by, let's face it, kids, general manager, president, manager, all under the age of 35 years old.
These players are going through a lot where it's a brand new coaching staff, brand new front office. Like, there's so many new faces, and they've had to make these relationships over the course of their career, and now they have to start a whole new one from scratch with all these different people. So when you're able to understand them as people and make them feel comfortable to where they can kind of let their guard down and relax and just focus on baseball, I think there's a lot to be said for that sometimes gets looked over.
Well, they got to first get the trust of this guy, and we'll see. I mean, they're even at the minor league level, most of these guys are used to being managed by older guys. They sometimes some of these minor league managers are as old or older than major league managers. Anyway, for whatever it's worth, it's spring training. You can't overreact to anything that happens in spring training because they're trying different things. But this was somewhat unusual for the longtime observers that he did live batting practice in the first week of spring training. Usually that's to work on drills, make sure everybody's in shape. There's certain things that you do every year and you don't worry about necessarily pitching and hitting in the first week. But Butera has gone right at it and explained the reason why.
I think hitters usually start behind pitchers, right? Normally in spring training, just because of environments, it's hard for hitters to face live pitchers all offseason where pitchers are able to get off the mound kind of whenever they want to. Biggest thing on the pitching side is health, and also like the last couple weeks that some of these guys have been here, they've been working on certain things. So being able to see them execute those in an environment where they're facing a hitter, that's important. And then for the hitters, a lot of it's for them timing, but then also seeing what pitches they're swinging at, which pitches they're taking. More important for me than how the ball's maybe coming off their bat right now.
How do you determine which pitchers will pitch in the stadium, and do you hope to see everybody on the mound there?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to obviously schedule dependent and make sure we have enough days before we run into games here, but it's to just rotate people through. It wasn't really set up specifically for a certain pitcher to pitch here versus there. We'll try to bounce everybody around.
We were talking to some of the players, like, what's it like being on the field so early in camp? But for you, what's it like being on the field so early in camp?
It's awesome. It's awesome. I asked you the same question, right? It's great. Especially when there's weather like this, and just, I don't know, there's just a lot of positive energy, it feels like, with these guys. They seem really happy to be out there and hungry.
Well, you should be happy to be out there, too, at the age of 33 with your experience, but okay, we'll leave it at that. This last thing from Butera, did about 20 minutes the other day, and we talk about this all the time. What about the fundamentals? What are they doing? Why aren't they working on holding the runner and taking the extra base and, certain fielding situations, all those things. Why aren't they working on that? This is Butera addressing how fundamentals will be handled this season.
A little bit of everything. I think just being a hitter, I think when I'm standing behind home plate, sometimes my eyes automatically go to the pitcher like I'm in the batter's box, right? So usually I'm just kind of keeping an eye on everything. We had some base running work going on at first, I'm sure you saw. We had some catchers back there working on some new stances and receiving techniques, so keeping an eye on that. Last 11 years, so I've seen what they've done today. And a lot of it's just setting the tone early in terms of like communication, making sure we're forming kind of a understanding of how the pitcher's timing works versus the infielder's timing and all these things. Like at the end of the day, like we need to get a good grip of working together to make sure these things run smoothly. And it starts as early on as we possibly can just to kind of hammer home how important fundamentals are.
Obviously, it's a big part of spring training, but then come June, July, August, that can feel like ancient history. How much do you plan to incorporate that stuff during the season?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard pregame. I think any opportunity we have, we will, but it's really hard when you're playing night in and night out to ask, get the guys out there earlier and get on the field. Teams, whether you're home or road, you only have the field for a certain amount of time. So we plan to use video a lot, just kind of review games and plays from the night before and kind of teach more in like that visual setting and a classroom setting.
Okay, so there you go. There's the young manager, Blake Butera, with a few thoughts as spring training. We get preseason games. No, they call them spring training games, exhibition games, whatever you want to call them. They get started this weekend, and I don't know what you find out from them, but it's all part of the whole spring training waltz. Thought of this. This goes way back. But when Gus Frerotte banged his head against the wall in 1997 and essentially knocked himself out of the game. He wasn't knocked out, but he hurt his neck, and they took him to the hospital, and it turned out to be a god-awful Redskins game. They tied the Giants 7-7 as Jeff Hostetler came in and just couldn't get anything done. But Gus had some frustration early in the season, and he scored a touchdown on his own, banged his head against the wall. And then they asked Norv Turner about it after the game, and he said, I never thought I had to tell a guy not to bang his head into the wall, which reminded me of this story I saw today about the buses in Los Angeles. And apparently there is a problem with the number 2, on the city bus. And so it's gotten so bad, according to this story, that the city's Department of Transportation has been forced to launch a video campaign reminding passengers to wait until they have left the bus before, he says, the See Something, Do Something campaign reminds passengers to buy a ticket, don't smoke, drink, or poop on the bus. Well, there's no reference to taking a number 1 on board. Presumably, that's banned as well. Yeah, I would think so. This is not like a Greyhound bus that you would take like to New York where they have a bathroom in there. There's no bathrooms on the city bus, and they're actually having to tell you, we don't want you to poop on the bus. How long the spots have been running on the buses remains unclear. Other videos in the series include a no drinking ad featuring an overserved character and a pay your fare message. Yeah, you got people jumping off and on the buses. But again, I mean, isn't that like understood? And maybe this has happened once or twice. Is this such a prevalent problem that they have to have a campaign? Again, it's like, just like Norv said, I never thought I'd have to tell a guy not to bang his head into the wall. I think I never have to tell a passenger not to poop on the bus. I guess these are problems that they are facing. They have problems in all public transportation, but man, that's a rough deal. By the way, I used my senior citizens Metro card for the first time last night. If you're eligible to get one, there's a cost in becoming eligible for a senior citizens Metro card. You have to reach that age. But now that I've done it, I can't believe how cheap the Metro is when you have one of these cards. It's unbelievable. Metro rush hour fares, not that cheap. You want to go downtown, it's like $6. As a senior citizen, it's pretty good. Pretty good. I went downtown, met some friends for dinner last night. In fact, I'll tie that in the next hour. We got a couple of food stories to deal with. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. This is something that has been coming up for quite a while. Maybe even it started with the pandemic. I'm not sure. But this tipping for everything, it's gotten out of control. And, I understand that servers have to make money and their salaries are based on tips. But I have a policy. If I'm ordering while standing on my feet, I don't tip. And wait till you hear this story that was put out on Twitter yesterday about buying a simple cup of coffee. I mean, it's just mind-blowing what chutzpah these coffee shops have in selling you what is already an expensive cup of joe and what they would like you to add on. But anyway, last night, it was a great opportunity. Really enjoyed it. My friend Mark Boyle, who I worked with many, many years ago at WFAN and has gone on to be the voice of the Indiana Pacers for nearly 40 years. He is a legend in Indiana. He's in the Indiana Broadcasting Hall of Fame, the whole thing. And so he comes in once a year with the Pacers, and we try to get together for lunch. And in this case, last night, because of the odd schedule where they came in yesterday, they flew in yesterday, and then they're going to play back-to-back games against the Wizards tonight and tomorrow, dinner made more sense. And my friend Steve Buckhantz, 20-year voice of the Wizards on TV, and through his NBA travels has gotten to know Mark. We arranged that the three of us would get together at the Old Ebbitt Grill. It's a beautiful restaurant downtown. Traffic was bad because of this peace conference that's going on today. But they made it. I made it. I made it by parking here at the station in Friendship Heights and taking the Metro down on my senior citizens Metro card, which was very easy. They had issues with Mark taking the Uber from the hotel and Buck coming in from his home in Virginia. So anyway, we all got there, and it was a really good time at a great place. And Mark picked up the check, which was really nice. We tipped well. Buck and I kicked in the tip, and it was a great time. And given the location and given the quality of the food, it's for a dinner like that, it's relatively reasonable. Well, there's a story that I saw in the Washington Post. The food section has been taken over by someone named Elazar Sontag, who I'm not familiar with, but does this online chat where people write in questions and comments, and he responds to them. So a gentleman by the name of Mark Lipman wrote in to say, I fully understand that as restaurants struggle to survive, a reasonable charge for corkage is understandable. Corkage means you bring your own bottle of wine and they open it for you. However, I was very unpleasantly surprised on a visit to the Inn at Little Washington, where the corkage had been about $100 with a limit of 2 bottles, to discover when I brought 2 bottles, the fee had been raised to $200. It's an awful lot of money. And I'm wondering, am I out of line? How can one readily find out what the corkage fees are, which never seem to be on the restaurant's website, and whether they even permit one to bring their own wine? I looked this up. The cost of it's a price-fixed dinner at the Inn at Little Washington, which is one of the greatest restaurants, not just in Washington, but in the country. It's a place that you go for a major celebration, whether it's anniversary or graduation or whatever it is. That's a place where you celebrate. So it's $328 for a dinner, and I don't even know if that includes the wine. Maybe that's why you bring your own, but with the corkage fee, it's another $200, and you tack that on to whatever you paid for the wine. That's a lot of money. I mean, you could look at it like, well, you're already paying $328 a person for dinner. What's another couple of $100 to open bottles of wine? Sontag's response was, youch. As you said, a corkage fee supports restaurants when you decide to bring your own supply. Still, that is an eye-popping number. The best way to find out about the corkage fees is definitely to call the restaurant. Another response to this, and people can weigh in on these online chats with their own thoughts. One guy said, well, are you going to tip on that too? So if you give, 20% on $200, it's another $40 for $240 to open a couple of bottles of wine? Wow. It's just crazy with the add-ons here. And again, I understand restaurants are struggling and the prices have to go up because the cost of labor and the cost, not just the people who are your servers, but the kitchen staff, and people at the front of the restaurant, and a high-end restaurant like that requires a large staff with really qualified people, all those things. But it's just crazy how far this can go. And yeah, I mean, it's not something that I would ever do. I don't think I'd ever eat at the Inn at Little Washington. My parents did many years ago, but I wouldn't see that. And here's my view of this, and maybe it's ridiculous, but this is my view. You can have a really great meal at a number of restaurants around town for less than $100. I mean, a top-notch meal, $100. I'd rather eat there and take the $200 and whatever dollars you save on the Inn at Little Washington dinner. That's not to disparage them in any way. I'm sure it's a fantastic meal. And I'd rather take that $200+ and donate it to charity. It just seems excessive. And speaking of excessive, I saw this on Twitter. Gene Robinson, who I'm not familiar with, but he has a number over 100,000 followers. He must be some type of influencer. He put up the copy of a receipt for a cup of coffee at something called the Grind Station. I don't know where this is, but he bought a large coffee for $4.50, which is in line with a cup of coffee. But they checked on, because he didn't pay cash, a fee, a credit card fee of 95 cents. So they threw on another $1 for that. With tax, that $4.50 cup of coffee cost $5.85. But like the Ginsu knife, that's not all. Below that, and this is what really rankles me, below that is what they are suggesting for a tip. And they start the suggestion for tip not at the standard 20%, but at 50%, which would tack on another $3. So your nearly $6 cup of coffee would now cost $9. And if you tip 75%, I don't know who'd ever do that unless you're, won the lottery or something, not for coffee, but for anyone else. $4.38 for that. And of course, if you tip 100%. But these are the three suggestions, not the 20% tip, which I would never do for a cup of coffee, but if you were going to tip not 20%, no, 50%. And that's kind of where we are. Speaking of coffee, this came up. This is really cool when you get together with two guys who have that kind of experience in the NBA as Buck Hansen and my friend Mark Boyle do. They tell great stories that they collect over the years. And one of them was from the time that Howard Schultz, the mogul for Starbucks, the founder of Starbucks, when he bought the Seattle Supersonics. Well, they've now since moved to Oklahoma City, but many years ago he bought them. And he called Mark Cuban for advice on running an NBA team, because at that point Cuban had been running the Dallas Mavericks for maybe a decade, I don't know. But Cuban said to him, he said, look, you figured out how to sell a 50-cent cup of coffee for $6. I think you can figure out how to run an NBA team. I thought that was funny. That was very funny. Okay, let's get to this little Tiger talk. You heard the other day that Tiger Woods, who is 50 years old now and has spare parts everywhere in his body. He's just undergone his 7th back surgery. And yet, with the Masters, 2 months away, less than 2 months away, Tiger is not ruling out the possibility of playing in the Masters. Here are two of his biggest fans, Tony Kornheiser, Michael Wilbon, on the Tiger Talk.
The Masters starts on April 9th. That's only 7 weeks away. Tiger Woods has not gotten on a golf course in a real tournament since the British Open in 2024. We all love Tiger. We all think he's great to watch. Wilbon, how do you feel about the potential of seeing Tiger tee it up at Augusta?
I have no appetite whatsoever for watching Tiger Woods play again after what we saw lately, most recently. I have no, and look, I turned into a golf wonk after 30 years old for one reason, Tiger Woods, right? It changed my whole life. And you know this.
I understand, yeah.
Tiger, watching and obsessing over Tiger. There were the only things in my life I liked as much as watching Tiger Woods, watching Muhammad Ali and Michael Jordan. That's the list.
I understand.
But Tony, it's over. Yeah. And I don't want to see Tiger. We know how hilly Augusta National is and how difficult to walk it is. And so Tiger
but you know
what body parts are actually his?
Okay, he's walked that 5 times as a champion. He's won it 5 times. He can negotiate his way around Augusta. Look, if I watch this, I'm going to watch it with my hands over my face, and in the aperture, I'm going to get my eye through, and I'm going to look at it. And you know why? Because it's a scary movie to me. It is Scream 7 or whatever they are advertising now. Tiger Woods has had 1 million operations on his back and on his legs. He's just coming out of his 7th back surgery. Every bone in his body is fused to another bone in his body, and I don't want to see him playing because we've all seen that clip where he swings and he goes right down to his knees.
Okay,
because he's in
you know what you're describing? You're describing a circumstance with Lindsey Vonn. We just went through this. You want to see Tiger Woods screaming in agony at the bottom of a hill?
Let me go to something that I know you will understand, TGL. TGL, where they play indoors and they hit balls into a bed sheet.
Yeah.
You don't like it, and I do.
No.
They are running an ad now for TGL, and it says more this, more that, more the other thing, and it very specifically says more Tiger. They show Tiger in a red shirt with his arms out, more Tiger. You know why? Because he's there. He's physically there. He's helping his teammates. He's reading putts. He's encouraging everybody, but he's not actually playing. And that, to me, is Tiger right now, that he's not actually ready to play.
And so, therefore, We don't have any appetite for this. We don't. It's not even. Look, I know there was 2018 or 19. Whenever he came back and won the Masters, the most unlikely event we've ever seen in golf. But again, now with these fake body parts, come on now.
Yeah, and remember this: when he won the Masters in 2019, that was before he drove the Genesis, allegedly 100 miles an hour, basically off a cliff and almost lost his leg. So we've added all that. And Tiger says, I guess he could get an exemption to do this. But I guess he could even go to court if he needed to. I don't know where this stands, but this happened over 25 years ago, that there was a golfer who had a leg injury and petitioned to use a cart in a PGA event. But he says he's not going to do that. He in the senior tour you can, or what they call the Champions Tour. When you reach the age of 50, you can compete on that, and he's interested in doing that. But Tiger's about winning majors, and if he's entering, he's thinking he can win. And the Masters is, if there's even a shred of hope that you could even be in it in the last day for a major, that's the one for him. That's his tournament. But I'm with them. I think it's over, and you don't want to really see that. A couple of baseball things. A good column by Stephanie Apstein in SI.com about Tony Clark leaving the Major League Players Association. This was spurred by the Eastern District of New York looking into accusations of financial improprieties in the union, that they were collecting these monies and people were making big salaries to basically do nothing for kids' charities and things like that. And then the big blow was that they found in this investigation evidence that Clark had been engaged in an improper relationship with his sister-in-law. This is really bizarre. Sister-in-law, and she had been hired by the union in 2023. You don't get fired for having an affair with your sister-in-law, but if she is an employee of the Major League Baseball Players Association, you can't do that. She calls it's staggeringly irresponsible. Absolutely. She writes, the players have done their part, staging an exhilarating postseason that culminated with the most watched game globally in 34 years, meaning 7th game of the World Series. The level of play has never been higher, and the pitch clock has casual fans engaged again. Yeah, the sport is, relatively speaking, doing well right now. And this would be a terrible time for a work stoppage, but with the developments in the last 48 hours on top of what else has been brewing for the last couple of years, is the owners are really, really getting close and they're saying to themselves, okay, look at what the Dodgers are doing. We got to get ourselves a salary cap. She writes, even the sudden timing of Clark's resignation should prompt questions. According to The Athletic, after the first Morrison Forrester's review, that's the company, the law firm that looked into it, turned up incriminating messages between Clark and the sister-in-law / coworker, Clark sat for an interview with the firm on Friday. Over the weekend, the union's executive subcommittee learned of the messages. On Monday, the players asked Clark to resign. He was already in Arizona for the union's annual tour of spring training clubhouses. He abruptly canceled his Tuesday meeting with the Cleveland Guardians, scheduled for 6 a.m. local time. Clark should have known the investigation would dig up evidence of his relationship, which again was with a family member he hired to work for him. That Clark waited to step down until the players forced him out is unforgivable. So there's a really bad look for the Players Association. They do have an interim director right now. He's been an assistant with the executive committee for a long time. Bruce Meyer, 64 years old, and we'll see how he navigates this. But it seems inevitable to me that we're not going to have at least part or maybe all of the 2027 season. Having watched these labor disputes going back to 1972, I just don't see how the bridge can be mended here. And then the owners are ready to go. I mean, this time they've saddled up the idea of a salary cap, and they're probably going to get it. I've said that before, so maybe they won't, but it would make sense because with a cap, you have a floor. And you're going to have teams that spend more than the Pittsburgh Pirates, than the Washington Nationals. That's got to happen. And then we got a big uniform thing with the Red Sox. It's turned out to be like a 3-ring circus here. They have their new jerseys, which are made by Fanatics. And Fanatics gotten a lot of hot water was last year or the year before where they came up with these jersey designs which looked cheap and showed the sweat stains more, and they had to change that. So the 2026 home, white jerseys for the Red Sox were revealed, and some of the front of the D in red and the S in Sox were stitched directly over the red piping coming down from the center of the top. In other words, the way it used to work was like you had red on the left breast and Sox on the right, and there was some separation between, that thing that comes down the middle where they button it up, and that became a problem. So they put out a statement that they've talked to Fanatics, and that was going to be fixed. And they wrote, as part of Major League Baseball's return to the 2023 jersey template, we approved a design for our home jerseys that once were produced and seen in person, we felt there should be more spacing between the lettering and the piping. In collaboration with Baseball and Fanatics, we are adjusting the home whites to achieve this separation. The updated jersey will be ready for opening day. And then they got a lot of, whoa, look at them throwing the Fanatics under the bus. They said, no, this is not them. They deserve no blame. We're grateful for the new jerseys, blah, 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 blah. So it's turned into a cluster you-know-what, and it's all over because the jerseys. Look, if you're a Red Sox fan, you got to be pleased that it didn't get to what it got to here, where they, at one point, and this is going back 15 years, a couple of the Nationals players came out of the clubhouse wearing the new jerseys that said Nationals. Yeah, it was no I, just Nationals. And so that became sort of a running joke for a franchise that had yet to achieve the ultimate in winning the World Series. And now the Red Sox, at least one of the storied franchises in sports, and also one of the storied uniform looks, now they got a whole mess on their hands thanks to a little glitch with Fanatics. Anyway, the weeks just fly by. It's another Thursday. That means tomorrow is Friday. And I will see you back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.